Welcome to another episode of Positively Uncensored. Today, I'm so excited to dive deep into Love is Blind Season 7. Now, I know how tempting it is to just go right in and to recap the last few episodes, but that's not what I'm going to do. I've watched all 6 of them, but I'm going to start back at the beginning. I know, torture, but come back here so that we can recap the last episodes together. They heat up as we go through, but first, I feel like it's important for us to get to know all of the cast members, talk about anything that we missed. So that's what I'm going to be doing this episode, and I will be going through the first 2 episodes. So, without further ado, now I will jump around and skip over some people who didn't ultimately make it into the pods, unless I want to say something. Alrighty. So, starting with episode 1. Excuse me, seasons are changing, and I'm a little bit sick in fighting that. So, episode 1, we meet Ashley A. And we learn that Ashley A watched her mom go through a divorce and that she wants to be the one in her family who gets married and stays married. Now, her and Tyler have good conversations from the moment that they meet each other. He has a puppy. He likes to cook. He likes her voice. And he's very affirming that Ashley is the one who he's interested in from the very first episode. I would like to point that out. I am rooting for you, Ashley and Tyler. Now, there will be some spoilers because, as I said, I've seen the first 6 episodes. So I'll probably reference a couple of things that happen later on down the line. So you may want to watch everything before you watch this. But I love Ashley and Tyler from everything that we've seen of them. So Ashley and Tyler, they have a good conversation. She works as a marketing director and she's in a nonprofit, and they both want to have kids. So they align on these large goals, which matters. Now, Nick really threw me off. Okay. I go through a period where I don't like Nick at all. I kind of feel bad for Nick, then I'm starting to like Nick. I can't tell how I feel about Nick. But in the beginning, I'm like, Nick is kind of giving doucher. Nick Dorka, Nick doucher. That's what he was giving in the first half of the episodes. And I've told him that I didn't like him at first too. I sent a message to request him on the pod. And I said, my feelings for you changed as I watched the last batch of episodes, which I think would be an even more interesting interview standpoint because I came around. So I can ask questions for the people who also were skeptical at first. So Nick flirts with 5 women in a row and he's like, anything you want. I'm here to chop it up like a Caesar salad. And I'm like, oh, this guy. And it's like, I do love a certified yapper. I do. I love a guy that loves to talk. But Nick in the beginning just felt like he was saying all this bullshit. So seeing him progressively become, I don't know if it's more mature or just show more of his true personality. I'm not sure what's happening, but we see like a different side of Nick as the episodes progress. And even some of the guys, like Leo says, Nick is everything. I'm not. He's calm. He's level-headed. So I don't know. I don't know if he was getting an interesting edit, but at first I'm like, this guy, everyone called him Mr. Suave too. So Nick and Hannah talk to each other in episode 1, and they're both the youngest in the group. Hannah grew up in West Virginia. She dated her high school quarterback. She was the cheerleader. And she says how hard it is to find a husband because people are very superficial. She talks about how you can be the best person, best personality. And if you have a few extra pounds, how people aren't interested in you. Very understandable, very relatable. I have been there. And I appreciated her sharing her experience. Now, I do think that editors have a little bit of malintent with showing that because it's like we hear that, and that's something that everybody remembers as she gets an edit that feels a lot like Chelsea's. Now, some people, the jury's still out. Some people have a lot of debate on whether or not Chelsea was given a bad edit or if that's just the way that Chelsea was. But I think as information came out, we started to realize that Chelsea had some legitimacy in her feelings. So I'm going to leave some space for Hannah, even though she's tripping by the end of the last batch of episodes, really tripping. But they're trying to really show us that she has some insecurities and plant that seed. And we see that as the episodes go on. Now, Leo and Hannah have a conversation next. And Leo is pretty different than Nick. Now, exact opposite, I don't know about all of that, but Leo's different. He's 30 years old, 26. But despite him being older than Nick somehow seems more mature. But we have to talk about Leo and his family experience because I have a lot of empathy towards him. And I understand why he's not healed. Like I actually understand what's going on. So immediately he tells Hannah that he's an art dealer, episode 1. And Hannah says that her favorite thing in the world is first experiences, traveling, trying new foods. And they bond over like a love of appetizers. So at first they seem like they have a lot of chemistry, but mostly Leo seems like he's excited to me to like mansplain things to Hannah. He like thinks that Hannah is uncultured and hasn't experienced very many things. And I do think there was a side of him that has pure intention, just excited to experience things with a partner. But I think a lot of things are ego driven. So I think that Leo also wants Hannah to make him feel like he is the best thing since sliced bread. Hannah had 2 unfortunate options. Both need a little bit of therapy. And I remember tweeting that especially early on. Now, like I said, I grew some fondness for Nick as I went through the last batch of episodes. But yeah, completely agree. Early on, I was like, both of these options for Hannah are absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. I'm using StreamYard, so I have some fun couple new features. So if you see your comment pop up, I'm showing it. It's just in case people are watching this later on, so they can catch up on all of the comments that we've been posting. Okay, so yeah, they bond. And then I think a funny point of Love is Blind is always when the men start getting drunk. And it's obvious. It's obvious the second that the men, more than the women, start getting the liquor in them, because all of a sudden they'll be in the hallways talking to each other. They'll be like, dude, I'm so grateful for you, dude. Dude, it's like the best thing ever. Dude, I'm in love. I'm in love. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are so, yeah, like I love it though. It is what it is. It's hilarious. It makes me laugh. Leo talks about how his biggest insecurity is that a girl will only want him for his money. And then we get right into his conversation with Brittany. And I think it's funny how editors do things like this. Leo's concerned about someone who wants him for his money. Cute Brittany, who's dated rich men who financially take care of her. However, I actually like Brittany. I was shocked because looking at her casting photo, I was like, it's giving RBF. I don't always typically like the blondes, but I like that Brittany dates men, how men typically date women. She has like a similar mindset. Anyways, Leo's like, I'm so worried that people will be into me for my money. And then he talks to Brittany. Now, he asks if he was to plan vacation activities for them, if she would be down because he's a planner. And immediately, yes. Like, if you're going to ask a girl that, but you don't want her to think that, like, I mean, okay, I get it. Like, of course, you don't want that to be the only reason she's with you, but starting off that hot, like, hey, can I take you on elaborate vacations? I mean, it's not that she wants you for the money, but it's definitely acknowledgement that the life would be more exciting. Can we at least say that that's fair? So Brittany says that, and this is so funny. I'm reading my notes right now, and I keep calling Brittany Hannah in my notes because I obviously had the two of them confused. So Brittany's like, I chase fun. I date athletes. I date rock stars. And that's it. Like, that's my dating history. And I do think that Brittany had a completely different picture in her mind of what Leo looked like compared to when she actually met him. I think in her mind, she had a different idea of art dealers. And then when she met him, she was immediately like, what have I done? And I don't mean that in a shady way. I'm just trying to point out Brittany's escalation of thoughts as this goes on. And I think that's what she was thinking. So Brittany's like, I don't cook, I don't clean, and I want a masculine guy. Oh, she also does skincare, so she's an esthetician and does beach cleanups. So Brittany's actually like has a lot going on, like she may not cook and clean, but she's an author. She does beach cleanups. She's an esthetician, so she is busy doing things. Taylor and Garrett is who we see next. And in the beginning, it's interesting because I actually really liked Garrett. Maybe my feelings will change for him as well. Like I'll leave space, but he's done some things that just feel very icky. And I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But at first, they have chemistry and literally, inside joke, because she specializes in clean hydrogen energy and he's in quantum physics. So they quite literally are in like, what is it called? STEM careers. They're both in science careers. Okay. And they both have nerdy tattoos. So they had a lot in common and I was rooting for them. Taylor says that she thinks that relationships need to have entropy, which he, I guess, understood. And that's when I was like, wow, they would be a great match because I've never heard that word in my life. So Taylor says in her confessional that she had sparks with Garrett. Garrett tells the guys that he had a great conversation with Taylor. And it's really not until Taylor brings up something about her mom's first name that we see any cracks in the foundation of Taylor and Garrett. Because like I said, at first things are great. So the girls are back in like the common area. They're talking to each other and about how Nick D is such a smooth talker. And he seems like the type of guy who would ruin their life. I think it's good that they have these meetings like this to come together to share their thoughts and feelings on everybody, because without it, I mean, it's kind of like those Facebook groups, like, are we dating the same guy? Like, it's like, well, what did he tell you? What did he tell you? They need to be on like the same page. Okay, so next we see Tim talk. And Tim and Alex have a cute connection, especially from the beginning. Tim talks about how he's always had a problem feeling understood by women and admits that he was a dog or a boy. He said boy in the head, man in the body, but he came to the pods to find his wife. Now, it's interesting that I wrote this down because he references being a dog the entire episode. And I think at first this even took Alex back a little bit, but she was kind of like, okay, like he calls himself a dog, but he really calls himself a dog a lot. And I don't think Alex thinks that it's fun. I don't think that she thinks it's funny or cute. But at first, like I said, they have a cute connection. One's a Leo, one's a Virgo. I have no idea what that says about them and their compatibility. If you're an astronomy buff, please let me know in the comments. Are those two signs compatible? Alex says that she's very spiritual, and when you're in a marriage, it's for better or worse before God. And she talks about how both of her parents have MS, and I had to rewatch this episode back to understand, but I understood it now. So both of her parents had MS, and it sounds like in her mother's case, she was in a relationship where she was bathing him, taking care of him, and then when her MS got bad and she was walking with a cane, he dropped her. And I watched this a couple times back because I was unsure if Alex's parents got a divorce and they both had MS and were dealing with that in separate relationships, or if this was in reference to their marriage together. But either way, Alex is talking about something that's all too common and that as women we talk about a lot, which is that women and you can even look statistically, stay with men during their terminal illnesses and are caretakers a lot more than men are. Men are statistically way higher to leave a wife who has a terminal illness or to even leave a wife who they have to take care of because they marry a wife in order to have a caretaker to take care of them. So if all of a sudden that those laborious activities fall on them, men leave. Men leave. That's not what they signed up for. They want to be fucked and fed, excuse the language. And I'm speaking grimly, but that's just unfortunately statistically how a lot of things are. Now, I am very fortunate to have a great partner. And I also have a father who was the best father figure, the best role model I could ask for. He would never, ever do that. But that's not to say that statistically that's the facts. That's the facts. So that made me really sad for Alex, seeing that she has watched like a man do that to someone that she cares about and disappoint them. And I'm sure that sticks out in her mind that she wants a partner who truly wants to be in things for better, for worse, which is why I think it's a big deal when Tim talks about how he doesn't want to just get married, but die married. I was like, oh, I love that. Made me cry. That made me cry. Tim says a lot of things that make me cry in this first episode because he also talks about how um he never had to ask his dad what to do because he showed him from the day he was born, and same with his mother. And he talks about his two older sisters who have both passed away and how he carries them with him wherever he goes, and just feeling this like acute awareness of his mortality, all too aware of his mortality. And let me be kind, because Tim does joke a lot with the who let the dogs out, who's the dog, but going back to that statement right there, while that is annoying, if that's how he has been able to move through such disparity, who's to get angry? Just not saying that Alex isn't rightfully so, by the way, in later episodes, but just in terms of me talking down on Tim, getting annoying with the dog thing. Let me not yuck someone's yum. He moves through pain by humor. He is able to keep his head above water after going through so much loss. And that alone is an act of resilience. So, you know what, Tim? I really appreciate your lightheartedness and I understand it. And you know what? Same for Leo, because we haven't gotten into Leo's story yet. We will as I go through the episode. But I do, from a psychology standpoint, understand Leo. Does that make them Does that make them suitable partners? We'll see. We'll see. But at first, swoon over Tim and Alex. I literally have a note written that says that. I love how he talks about marriage. Love how he talks about his sisters, his family, just being close. I love how Alex was vulnerable and Tim gave her the space to be vulnerable. I really like them. So next we see Tyler and Ashley A, and they're having a conversation about boundaries. And he said that he doesn't mind sharing his phone password, especially if it makes his wife feel more safe and secure. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. How rare is that? How rare is that? Pretty rare. It seemed like a trend for Tim. His introduction was, I bought this yellow shirt despite my ex because she didn't like it. Oh, I did not see that comment from Tim. I don't really remember that comment. I think I'd have to go back to that. It's also important to acknowledge sometimes editors do pick things, you know what I mean, to try to show a certain narrative. We've seen different sides of Tim, but in episode 1 where he talks about his family and he's being vulnerable about his loss and dealing with it, I really enjoyed that conversation specifically. So, yep, Tyler talks about how he doesn't mind sharing his phone password, especially if it makes his wife feel more safe and secure, which I think is cute. Win for Ashley A. Brittany is now talking to Leo about how so Brittany and Leo get on kind of a morbid conversation. And because she's talking about how she has a high pain tolerance. And after she says that what she thinks about when she's going through pain is the fact that her mother has died. And that she must have been in pain when she passed away. So if she can do that and had to get through that, then Brittany can get through whatever pain it is that she's going through. And listen, Brittany has layers. I do think that Leo says him in a rather manipulative way to Brittany that she has substance and how smart she is and all of these other things. But I do think that Brittany is genuinely very misjudged. And I think that she has a lot of depth and a lot of layers to her. I also agree with Leo somehow that the most petite, high-pitched voice, sweet girls somehow have the highest pain tolerance. I'm like, what? How? And same is true for men. Like somehow when men would come in at the waxing salon I worked at, the larger the guy, the more athletic, the more muscular, the more he screamed during a wax. Like it just is what it is. So Leo then gets into his story, and he tells Brittany that he was supposed to take over his family business in the future, like a decade later after he graduated college. And instead, his mom got cancer. Then his dad got cancer. Then his grandmother got cancer. His grandfather got cancer. And then his stepfather got cancer all in 3 years. I mean, they didn't show that entire conversation, but we learned that when Leo is talking to the group of guys. So I'm assuming that he told Brittany about the depth of his family situation. And that is so heavy and burdensome. I hate to see someone's situation and say, I can't imagine going through that, because I feel like it's almost disrespectful to pain that people go through. Because people don't have a choice but to go through that. But I would be remiss if I say, again, Leo is keeping his head above water. It's going to be impossible to leave a situation like that unscathed, whether you develop horrible coping mechanisms, whether you have, a fear of mortality, whether his entitlement that he has gets worse because he lacks, his parents to keep him in check, whatever that is, it all makes sense. Any reaction that he has from that, it all makes sense. That's so much trauma to go through. And I just hope that he gets a good therapist to help him grieve and go through this throughout the rest of his life, because it's a loss that I'm sure he will never stop feeling. That's so isolating. So continuing on, that's to say I have empathy for Leo. Now, would I date Leo? Absolutely not. But do I have empathy for Leo? 1 million times out of 1 million. Okay, so yes, he talks about that. And then in the next frame, we hear Brittany hears Leo say that he has money. And their next conversation, she's like, so do you believe in 50-50? She's like, so now that we're on the money conversation, let's get into the 50-50 talk. And he's like, well, I don't believe in 50-50, but I definitely believe in the girl contributing something so that she has, some investment in things. And that's an interesting philosophy for me, because on one hand, I guess I agree, right? But on the second hand, not really. I am the type of person who believes that if you have significantly more resources, you should be using those resources. Now, if Brittany if this carries stress on him, let's say he's like losing his inheritance, he's not bringing in any money, that's a problem. Okay. Like anytime that it adds a significant amount of stress to the other partner, that does become a problem. However, I also think it's odd when people who have an inordinate amount of money are so stingy with it. And a lot of times, specifically with their partners, I think that's weird, because if you're in a relationship, you are investing into it, your time. Okay. Like, I don't know how much time, but you're investing time, however long you stay with someone. Whatever you do for them, like acts of service around the house, that's an investment. Loving somebody is an investment. There are so many ways to be invested in a relationship without contributing half financially. So I don't know. He didn't necessarily say half, but I feel like if you have $22 million and Brittany has a savings of 10,000, why not pay rent? Why not pay rent? Or just buy yourselves a house so that you're not even paying for anything. I don't know. I think that's odd. So that's to say, I don't really blame Brittany. She also discloses, though, that in her last relationship, she was taken care of financially 100%. So does Brittany want a breadwinner? It seems like yes. It seems like absolutely yes. For Brittany, that is not a contingency, but certainly important. And I feel like if Brittany was to overlook that, like let's look at some of the rockers or that she may have dated, they're probably very attractive, like to the point where it's concerning. You know what I mean? Like you look at them and you go, I can just tell that you would ruin my life, that type of way. So basically, Leo like I said, Leo didn't say no. So Brittany's like, okay, good. Like he didn't say that she would have to pay 50-50. He just said something. She's like, good, because I basically figured out that I'm not into that. And it's like, okay, fair. He does share though that he's insecure that a girl will want him just for his money, and that if everything still disappeared, all of his assets, he wants to make sure that his wife would still be there. And that's fair. That's completely fair. Although Leo quit droning, I got so annoyed with Leo because he droned on and on and on about how he doesn't want to be taken for granted for his money, but yet he constantly brought it up. I mean, within one of the first conversations, he's like, how do you feel if I plan elaborate vacations for us? He's like, so I'm an art dealer. I mean, there are so many different examples of him. But again, I'm an empath. So I'm like, dude, Leo, quit overcompensating. Okay. You need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. Yeah, so Leo tells Raym so Leo tells the guys at the table, like I said, about his entire family history. And as I said, that's crazy. That's absolutely shocking. Now, in that next breath, he continued to brag about his childhood spent at private schools, country clubs, and never having to worry about money. But that does not change that his story is such trauma. Like it almost leaves me speechless. I'm sure you can tell if you're listening to this episode. It almost leaves me speechless. Oh, funny note though, to make things light. Leo in a confessional says that he wants someone who appreciates resitura. And this was so funny. He's like, I just want someone who has the resitura, which he just wanted to say. Like he just wanted to say. And he's like, it's basically like when you put a lot of effort into something, but it looks like you don't. And it's like you trying to say resitura, it sounds like it would be resitura. And that's the first time I've ever even heard the word. Like it sounds like you're doing that right now. Like you're trying not to look like you have a lot of effort into it, but you are. Oh, that's like the opposite. He's being opposite of what he wants right now. Okay, so then Leo and Hannah have a conversation. And basically, this is where I said, he basically says that he thinks it would be so fun to show Hannah things for the first time and like get her reaction. Basically, mansplain things to her. And then they have a conversation. He's like, so I had a dream about you last night. And she's like, oh my God, like that's so flattering. And he's like, yeah, you're white, I assume, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, yeah, because I had a dream about a white woman. His dream to me made no sense. Like I literally let out like a cackle. Like, so you had a dream about a white woman, and then the white woman's mother was there just in the kitchen, and that's it. And that's Hannah. I feel like that's a lie. I feel like he didn't dream about Hannah. I feel like instead Leo was trying to discreetly figure out what Hannah's race was. And that's my opinion, and I stand on it. I think Leo was discreetly trying to figure out what ethnicity or what race Hannah was. So I maintain that. It was a weird comment. If that's not what he was doing, it was still fucking really weird. I'm like, you're dreaming about a random white woman and her white mother, and you're like, oh, it must be Hannah. Like it's just, and like nothing even happened in the dream. Like the only thing that happened is he saw them. I'm like, where's the climax? Like what happens in the dream? Does she smack the shit out of you? Like what happens? So weird. Anyways, Nick and Hannah have a conversation after, and he asks her to describe what she's wearing and makes a comment to her along the lines of like, you were the cheerleader in high school with a football boyfriend. And this is the moment that Hannah's just really like fed up with all of Nick's comments about her physically, because as we saw in the earlier clip, Hannah has some insecurities. She's obviously been treated a certain way by men who, for whatever reason, in their twisted ways, don't find her attractive. Because I think Hannah's beautiful, but as someone who has been called fat by men years back, I remember that experience. I also just remember being treated differently when I was anything but within the small confines of what men think is appropriate for women to look like. So I know that feeling, and I know that feeling. I still have body dysmorphia. I know that feeling of when certain comments you just pick up on and make you feel insecure. So I understand where Hannah's coming from right now, where she's like, listen, it seems like you are of the impression that I'm like this high school, rah, rah, like hot girl, like, like bikini model. And like, if that's what you're expecting, you're gonna, that's not me. Like, it just feels like that's what you like about me, is that I'm hot. Um, Now, there's some interesting sides to this, because Hannah also does see herself very highly. And I don't know if that's a cover up, or I'm not sure what dynamic that is. Not a licensed therapist, so I'm not going to guess on that. But there's something going on with that, like a projection of something or an overcompensation, or it's just like two things that just don't really make sense together. So Nick basically says that that's not why he wants Hannah, you know, and that those things don't matter to him, and that he wants a wife for the exact things that Hannah's saying. And it's just not, Hannah's just really not convinced. Between the comments of him asking what she's wearing, talking about how they would be together in high school, or even just him saying that he wants to look good for his wife, so he works out to be attractive to her, all of those things are making Hannah like unsure about Nick. And I think that those comments early on not set the tone, but set in movement how Hannah treats Nick later on, where she's almost trying to humble him, because that's how her actions strike me, starting around episode 4 through 6 with Hannah and Nick. Okay, so Garrett and Taylor. Flash to Garrett and Taylor. We're still in episode 1. Garrett tells Taylor that he's excited about talking about what their future will look like, and asks Taylor to tell him about her parents. Now, Taylor starts out with her dad is handy. He built their house. Her father and her mother is an angel and a gangster. And then she's like, everyone calls her by her first name because her first name is so cool, but you will not. And he's like, oh my God. And then he's like, wait, what's her first name? What's her first name? And she's like, well, I don't want to give away my first name, because I don't want to talk about her first name. It will give away something to do with my ethnicity. And I want to go through this experience just based on my personality. And I felt bad for Taylor immediately, because you could tell that she shouldn't even have to explain this. The whole experience is to be blinded from your senses and not know what the other person looks like. So she shouldn't have to explain this to him. And it's also like, Garrett, a white man, isn't going to understand why Taylor wouldn't want to talk about that anyways. So it's just like, he doesn't even have the lens to even really have this conversation right now. But anyways, he doesn't like that. Okay. Basically, he doesn't like that she doesn't want to say that. And his response is like, your ethnicity, interesting. That had not even crossed my mind. And he says, I'll be honest, I've dated white girls. It's just a shock. You're very calculated with what you're saying. And it's just kind of like, what is she hiding? And even because I have an inkling going forward that Taylor and Garrett may end up getting married out of the couples we have this season. We've seen people have some rocky starts. We've even seen some scenes where like Johnny and Amy, like he was kind of ignorant to birth control and then they ended up together. I'm not sure. I have a feeling that out of the couples, they may end up together. But in that moment, what Garrett said was really microaggressive, gave to me some sort of implicit bias, and was very weird, because to immediately jump to the assumption that because she's not white, she must be calculated, or that she's hiding something, is weird. Though that language was weird. But further, it's just like he can't leave it and respect her wishes. And even just the thought, It's just mainly the thought that because she's not white, she would be hiding something. And like I said, he doesn't have the lens to understand her reasoning. So to not understand that and to instead act like racism, implicit biases from people don't exist, and to just be like, you're hiding something, or to even act like there's not rules to this experience and like it's not supposed to be a blind experience. There were so many parts to where Garrett pissed me off. Okay. So moving into the next point, he continues on and says, you're very slow, methodical, careful, and the slow, I don't want you to know my ethnicity. It feels like you're trying to present a very curated image. And it's like you sound like someone who's upset that you're finding out that she's not white. Like, what is the curated image that you think she was trying to give to you? Like, I just don't like anything about Garrett's response. And maybe I'm reaching, but that's my opinion. It all seemed very icky to me. It all seemed very icky. So Taylor explains why she doesn't want to share that, like I said, and she shouldn't have had to. And Garrett tells Taylor that before he gets to the next step, he needs to learn more about Taylor. And she says, basically, I'll be very hurt if things don't work out between the two of us, and I've given away what I've looked like. And then Garrett is like, you know what? Never mind. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. And Taylor's like, at a certain point, I just want to know that I'm enough. And we can find out that at least it's my personality that sucks and it's not me. And it's just gross. Like, it's just gross. It's gross that producers show these conversations. And it's like, on one hand, because I'm talking about the parallels between real life and reality TV, there's substance there. But it's just sad to watch her demean herself or have to placate Garrett and make him feel better when in fact you were just being judgmental, or you were just being even potentially kind of racist. Like, it's okay that she didn't want to share her mom's first name, and we can move on to that without you wondering all of this, etc. things. So seeing her deflect with humor and be like, like, let's at least find out it's my personality that sucks. Like, for him to not grasp the fact that she's unsure if the experiences she's had in dating is because of her ethnicity that she can't help, or her personality, or other things. He has no concept because he is a white man. And so I just don't like his empathy, and I don't like his tone. I didn't like it one bit. Garrett says, and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know how, but we get to this point where Garrett's like, I have no idea what you look like, but that's not something that will prevent me from saying that I want to do this. What does he say? Oh yeah. And then he's like, it's just so strange that I feel this way about someone I'm just talking to. I don't know, Garrett, it's going to take a lot for me to ever like you. It's going to take a lot for me to ever like you. Next scene, Tyler tells Ashley that he made stuffed French toast this morning. And he talks about the jam he put in it, the cream cheese he put in it. Tyler, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I want Tyler's French toast. Drop the recipe. Cook it on TikTok. Fine. I want to see. So basically, he cooks, and he says he doesn't believe in traditional gender roles. He doesn't want his wife to work all day, working the same hours as him, then come over, labor in the kitchen, cleaning, cooking, cleaning up after cooking. No, he said he doesn't believe in that. Love it. Love Tyler. Tyler, I love you. Are you real? And then Tyler talks about how he used to ride horses as a kid, take lessons. He was part of the 4-H club. And Ashley's like, OMG, I was also a horse rider. And I have no idea what it means, but I think she learned Western. He learned English. So basically, they ride horses together. Like, they have tons in common. Who knew? Who knew? Is there any horseback riding in Washington, D.C.? I don't know. They share the dream of skydiving. Okay, yeah. They both want to go skydiving to take that leap of faith together with their partners. I think that's cute. You guys are both psychos. You guys are both psychotic for that. I think anyone who goes skydiving, good. I'll never do it. I'll never be giving them my money to that industry. I'm terrified. So anybody who has the balls to do it, good for you. I immediately have admiration. Tyler talks about how, okay, so Tyler shares his childhood and how his mom did her best, but her dad cut her out for having children outside of her race. And he talked about how her dad's side was Serbian and disowned her. This made me really sad because Tyler has a lot of pain from that situation. And then after that situation, it sounds like his grandmother passed away. His mother's mother passed away. And then he's not knowing as a child how to be there for his mom. He doesn't know how to support her. He doesn't know how to make life easier. He can't go out and get a job to help with things. So his mom was cut off from her family, then losing her family, and then taking care of children and making the ultimate sacrifice to provide for them. And Tyler just has a lot of awareness and empathy on this. And it's so nice to hear because unfortunately, I've seen so many men talk poorly about their parent who was there for them, typically their mother, and have a lot of resentment for their single mom, as opposed to having any acknowledgement of the other parent who was not there, or yeah, mostly just blame. Like I've seen lots of situations where there are lots of blame on the mom. So it was really nice to hear him have so much empathy and understanding for her situation, and also just very sad that he has that empathy and understanding. He also said that he regretted that it was a situation that she was going through without there being enough love, because it's not something that he was walking around and saying to his mom, like, hey, I love you. You're doing a great job. And to be fair, that's not something that you necessarily think about as children, like, of course you want to be near your parents, but without them setting that tone of, constantly telling you, it's not something that we think to love our parents. They're usually loving on us. And then we return it, love you too, that kind of thing. So Tyler said that he himself is going to get married, have a big family, a large gathering where there's no separation, where he has that unity, and he wants to have those types of memories. And Ashley gave Tyler all of the space to talk about this. She was so kind to Tyler. And I just really, really enjoy their connection, and I think they understand each other. Now, let's see. Okay, so Leo is weighing the difference. Next scene, Leo's weighing the difference between Brittany and Hannah. He's going back and forth. Who do I pick, Brittany or Hannah, Brittany or Hannah? On the other side of the things, Hannah's telling the women about her multiple choices between Nick and Leo. And I literally have written arguably both bad choices, because that's how I felt about both of them early on. She talks about how Nick's a smooth talker and spends a lot of time talking about her appearance. And she feels like he's the type of person who she could not be around without having makeup on. That's a red flag. Like, that's a red flag, Hannah. Like, that was the moment where I was thinking Nick was the problem, and the jury's still out because we don't know what they do with the edit. Was Nick making a lot of comments? Yes. Does that correlate into how Hannah ultimately ends up treating Nick? I don't think so far. So basically Hannah talks to her girls and they're like, you know what? Nick looks like the type of guy who would have nudes in his phone. I'm just going to say it. Okay. So she's like, you know what? Let me go solve this. And she goes in and has a conversation with Nick. And she's like, why are you here? Why are you here? Okay. She's like, you're pro athlete, college athlete. You got everything you want in life. You're attractive. I doubt you have any shortage of women lining up to date you in the real world. So why are you here? And Nick deflects, and instead of answering her, he's like, well, why are you here? Why are you here? And Hannah goes, because guys like you like me in the real world. And it reminds me of Brittany Cartwright, Rotten Hell Jacks. She's like, guys like you like me in the real world. But honestly, slay. Like, I was like, you know what? In the first half where I was really disliking Nick, I'm like, go Hannah, go Hannah. She's like, guys like you like me. And it's because you think I'm hot. And I want someone who likes me because I'm unapologetically me. Nick says, doesn't know what else to say. I'm looking for you, blah, 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 blah. Hannah breaks it off with Nick. Long story short, TLDR, Hannah breaks it off with Nick, and then she regrets her decision. And she goes back to him, and she's like, I fucked up. Okay. Too long didn't read even more. Hannah decides that she's not fucking with Leo. Okay. I don't want Leo. He's too much. And she decides she wants Nick. Now, I think a piece of Hannah thought Nick liked the fact that Nick was attractive and was confident in how he looked. And I think that was part of why she picked him, because I do think Hannah wants a conventionally attractive guy. I don't think Hannah would date a guy who's not. I think that Hannah admitted that people judge based off of looks. And I think she does it too, which she also admitted. So I took long enough to recap episode 1. I think I'm actually going to wrap here. I'm surprised at how long that took. However, when I come back, I'll be recapping episodes 2 and 3. I also need to hit on From season 3, episode 3. I watched that already. If you watch the show From, it comes out on Sundays, but the episodes are out first thing in the morning. So I watched that. Last night, I watched a new movie, which was called It's What's Inside. It was on Netflix. It was actually really good. Like, I really enjoyed watching it. So if you need something to watch, check it out. It's not scary, but it's fun to watch. So check that out. And then what else? From Tell Me Lies, I will be recapping that as well. I also have an interview coming up with an actress from the show, so stay tuned for all the tea. And that's pretty much it. I watched a new show on HBO called Summit, or it may be on Paramount. And it's about 15 Americans who are racing to hike the summit of a New Zealand mountain. Episode 1 was meh, but I do have hopes for it becoming like a similar show like Amazing Race. So that's all the tea. That's all the things I'm watching. I hope everybody stays tuned. Thank you to every single person who came in and watched this live. I hope everybody has an amazing day. Happy Sunday. Bye.